What's up, guys? How was lunch? All right, awesome. So, Luke, thank you. It's been an awesome event so far, and if you ever want to feel good about being introduced by somebody or introduced to somebody, always ask Luke Mills. He's always a good person that'll make you feel good about yourself and anybody else around you. So, always have great conversations with him and Caitlin, and especially on vacations with my wife, Sarah. So, always appreciate that good intro. He actually did a good job of saying what I was going to start off with the reason why I was chosen to give this specific message. It's because, again, I'm from New York, but I live in New Jersey, and believe it or not, there's actually two divisions in New Jersey, so almost have like a quarter of New Jersey. So the thing is, the way I've been able to build this over the years and build my event sales my CPO every year over the last 4 years to 500K plus is because I'm not stopping doing those smaller events. I might not want to do them sometimes. I might complain about it in our Snap group, our group me. It's like, why am I here again? Stacy's laughing, she knows. It's just like, and then all of a sudden, all right, yep, ultimate package, sold something, made it worth it, and it cost me $100. Because we all like that CPO, we all like seeing those fancy numbers and those really nice numbers on the reports, but you don't always know how much that person profited. Not that you're watching people's pockets, but it's like, hey, they might have sold 50,000 that week, but they spent $10,000 because of this, this, and this, or $5,000 because of this, this, and this. Good example, I chose to work a food truck fest, which, again, work a few of those street fairs. I've worked in the past 4 years, on average, probably about 18 to 20 one-day events that are 6 to 7 hours. And yes, my back hurts because the setup and breakdown every single time. But I'm going to continue to do those along with my appointments and my service calls and my marketing and my social, because that's what keeps me consistent and why I could have 400 plus weeks of 2K a week every single time. The 1,000's even more since I started full-time, maybe to my first net in 2016. So I did make 9 years, not 10, because they said it's my first full year, but the reason why I'm still here is because of net. So if this is one of your first nets or your second net, make sure to keep coming back because it's only going to get better. So before I get into my main talk, I probably have about, I guess I have 13 minutes because me and Carlton both have 15. Just a little bit of overview. With the way my schedule kind of works, the whole year I have one big event. That's the Big E. I get to work anywhere from 10 to 13 days there. It's awesome. I sell a ton because I've also built it since 2018. I have one like mid-size event, which is our Sussex County Fair, which is kind of like New Jersey State Fair. Doesn't get a ton of people. Got completely rained out this year. It was crazy. 8 out of 9 days thunderstorms. And then a few home shows. They're 2 to 3 days. Couple shows here and there. Golf show, filler show. But most of and then the malls. That's kind of like what my schedule looks like. I don't have the Texas State Fair, Iowa, Big E, I don't have a combination of everything around the country. So this is just to show that no matter what your situation is in your division, there's always a way to still get that CPO. And it doesn't always start with events. Yes, we are at the net meeting, but if you're still doing that stuff that you started off with growing up in the business, those phone calls, the appointments, the demos, the service calls, building up your past customer, you'll see how much more you'll sell, and then that'll get you your better standing in your event team too, from your C team to B team to A team, however your team works. And then hopefully eventually getting invited to other territories to get some of those bigger events. So for this message, I broke it down into 5 different parts. Now, this talk, I think it's pretty good. I didn't get to it yet, but I think it's pretty good, but it's not going to be one of those sexy Brandon Brown, Matt Graves package selling talks. But this is the stuff that you want to hear and the stuff you want to know on how to maximize what you have to work with. Whether it is just a small event or it's an event that maybe it didn't get the attendance that you wanted. So just as an example, one of those food truck fests that I had worked in October, literally I had to take my tent down because it was so windy. It was freezing out. I had one table. It looked bare. There was kids coming around for trick-or-treating because it was a Halloween thing, but I was like, one of the events that I complained about having to do, because I've done it in the past, but there was nothing else going on. I sold 8K in 7 hours, and I was not upset anymore. So the thing is, if they're out there, go do them, which that leads me to my first point. Find them and do them. A lot of the heavy hitters in your division, in your region, they're not looking for these because they don't need to do them, they don't want to do them, or it doesn't fit their schedule or their lifestyle. They're going to be going away and working for a week, 2 weeks, doing whatever. That gives you the opportunity to find those smaller 1 to 2 day shows that you could sell 2, 3, 5, 10 grand at and only cost a few $100s. Now, granted, in the Northeast where I live, yes, the population density is high, but that means there's just a lot less room territory-wise for there to be some of these big events. So we will look up stuff every few weeks, every month, every year. We will look to see if this promoter is putting on a new show, if there's a new street fair, if they added something else, because those are easy 1 or 2 day things we can fit in if we have nothing else going on that week aside from our normal day-to-day routine. So find them and do them. Put some time in your schedule every couple weeks or once a month to actually do the work. I forgot who was saying it before when it came to Chelsea's schedule. It's like if it's not in the schedule, you're probably not going to do it. So look through the schedule, see what weekends you have available, see where there are gaps and where you'd like to fill. And if there's nothing in your territory, see what's close. Ask your friends, ask your coworkers. In the Northeast, because we are more condensed, we do have a regional A team. So we post if there is other stuff that can be done, where it might only be 2-3 hours. I know some of you guys are like, oh, that's nothing. You'll drive 7 or 8 hours for shows. If I drive 7 or 8 hours, we're completely out of our region. I drive an hour and a half out of the region because for some reason, Western region is New York still in Western region. Doesn't make any sense. But do what you got to do to get that CPO and maximize your schedule. 2, for maximizing smaller events. Your past customer outreach. You'll see a recurring theme for a lot of the speakers that are here. And some of these things, again, you'll hear over and over, but past customer outreach. Do your CRM search and find out what customers are in that area so you could send out that marketing, whether it's text, email, phone calls. Past customers would separate the great reps from the good reps. It's much easier to sell to your own past customers than to complete strangers that you have to build the rapport with and build the value with over time. And if you have your past customers come, they're also the best testimonials when you're at the booth. All of a sudden, your customer or just a past Cutco owner walks up, and they're like, that's what helps you sell that signature or that ultimate or that package deal because a real person showed up and it wasn't just one of the names on your happy customer list that everybody should have at their booth too, as a little plug. Don't just send out a text every time. Switch up the marketing. If I'm doing a small event that I have 30, 40, 50 people maybe in the area, I'll make those calls or have an assistant help make those calls. Because also, it's an extra level of value. I've had customers that come to a show be like, oh, I didn't even know this was going on. This is awesome. Thanks for inviting me. Let your customers know that you do referral gifts if they want to bring friends. A lot of times when you're having these events, there are events that people come with to their friends. It could be a wine fest. It could be a street fair. It could be one of the food truck fests. Most people don't go alone to these things. So give them incentives to bring their friends over to the Cutco booth. Even just to say, hi, hey, this is my Cutco guy. I had something like that happen at the Big E. Now, this one person didn't particularly buy yet, but I made a whole custom set for her, and she's probably buying next year. But then when I realized that she wasn't buying, when I thought it was 100% she was, I pivoted to my customer who already was there, and he wound up getting 10 business kits at the booth. But he might not have come if he wasn't coming to bring her in the first place. He was actually surprised she didn't buy. He thought she was ready, so we were both surprised. And he was actually apologizing for her. He's like, yeah, I'll get those business gifts. So past customer outreach, again, difference between a good event, a great event, or even an amazing event. If you go look at some of my past customer orders from the Big E, or if you just go look at Dowd and what he does at all of his, because he has lines of people coming up for every one of his big events, you don't have that unless you have a good marketing system in place and build great relationships. Sharpening at the event. If it is allowed, obviously you don't want to tell people to bring knives to a place that is not going to let them through or you'll have an issue. Make sure they know if they could get their knives touched up. Tell them to bring a few of their favorite. Another nugget here is tell them to take a picture of all of their knives on the counter before coming. for only taking a few. That'll make your life way easier to upgrade at the booth. You don't get the objection of, I don't know, I don't have, or I don't know, I forgot it at home. You know exactly what they have and how easy it is to upgrade them from there. So for the Sharpness event, when you are offering it, it gets people to the booth. And then obviously we all know how to sell once they get in front of us. It also delivers an extra layer of service, especially if you're in an area that you don't visit too often. Because you might not want to do a service event out there, you might not have the means to do a service event out there, but if you're already in a place that's you're going to see new customers, have some of your past customers come by as well. And then that sharpening is, like I said, it's always great for slower and smaller events because it gives you something to do, give that extra layer of service. And I've been doing that at malls the past couple years now too. When you're at the mall for 8, 10, 12, 13 hours, again, that's the difference between having a good mall season and a great mall season. So make sure to offer the sharpening at the event if it is allowed. So 4, incentives to buy here and buy now. This is going to be some of the stuff that you kind of heard already, but a little extra nuggets here. But give the customer a reason to buy at that $40 holiday craft fair you're at. They don't expect to see Cutco that's hundreds and thousands of dollars when they're trying to buy ornaments. But they still will if you do it the right way. Give them the extra incentive. Give them the extra 5, 10% off. Give them the extra peeler. Give them the extra pair of shears if you have to. It's like, Mrs. Jones, honestly, and this is like the different way of, kind of like the opposite of what Brandon Brown says. Obviously, I learned Brandon Brown a couple times over the years, mentor for 2 years. Shout out Brandon over there. A reason why people want to buy. This is the biggest event. This is the best place to buy Cutco. This only happens one time a year. I use that all the time if I'm working something like a big event. If I'm working a small event, you kind of do the opposite. So it's like, hey, Mrs. Jones, honestly, I shouldn't even be at this event. So I'm just trying to make the most of it now that I am. So if I could do something really special for you to make it both worth our whiles, would you be open to that? So it's a great way to get in there and ask that permission question to see if they are open to getting any Cutco at that $40 craft fair that you're working, that you're next to the 80-year-old grandma with the knitted sweaters. I said, I'm still doing some of that stuff. So you guys aren't too good for it either. And then also, we've had some of our own stuff in our back pocket, some extra peelers, some extra conference table knives, things like that. Have those on hand for those small events. So, Ms. Jones, I wouldn't normally be able to do this, but because I have blank in my own personal inventory, I'm just going to give this to you here as a little extra gift so you don't have to pay Cutco for it. That's immediate gratification. It's an extra deal. It's more CPO for you. It's stuff that you already have that doesn't hurt you. So just give them that extra reason. Give them that extra reason why they should buy here, why they should buy now, and no matter where you are, whether it is a small craft fair, food truck fest, street fair, or one of your big home shows. I got about 2.5 minutes, so I'm going to say this last one is kind of an extension of what probably almost everybody has said so far, is staying positive. These are the events that you need to stay positive at. You can't have your head in your phone. You can't be sulking. You can't be doing all this stuff because you haven't spoken to somebody in 2 hours. There's going to be times where that show's a complete dud. You learn from it. Maybe you don't do it next year, but you don't know unless you try. It only takes that one customer to have a great day. Keep your head in the game. You might not have spoken to somebody in 2 hours, but as soon as that prospect walks up, that good prospect, your pitch should be ready. You should have that elevator pitch. You should be speaking like Curtis and Matt. You should have everything ready to go because it's just embedded into your brain. You should be saying it like you've already said it 100 times that day, like you were working your biggest state fair. Always be ready. Some of the biggest orders or some of your biggest orders are the most unexpected. How many of you have been in an event or been in a service call you thought it was going to be just so bad and it wound up being awesome? I did a Zoom call for somebody who referred me and lived in Texas, and the person maybe bought gadgets from me a few times over the years. That referral bought an Ultimate with cookware, and I've already had a couple business gift calls with them too. So you never know where they're going to come from. And then this is a little funny thing to say because everybody in the Northeast will laugh at it. I'm not always positive. I'll say some stuff. But as soon as that customer leaves, the next one's up. I'm ready to go. It didn't even happen. And that's why I'll have those big days. That's why I'll have a 22K day. Start the day with positivity. Have a goal for yourself. If you're somebody who journals or does anything like that, do that in the beginning of the shift, because a positive mindset, you're going to sell more. You're going to be in a better mood. What are you grateful for? How many leads and orders are you going to manifest that day because of that, no matter the size? You're going to have 10 $300 orders, or you're going to have 9 $300 orders and that $4,000 order. Doesn't matter as long as it gets there. And the last thing for staying positive is just have fun, be you, and sell a bunch no matter the circumstances, because there is plenty of opportunity out there, as you can see by the thousands and thousands of events that we've completed as a whole event team across the nation. So find them, do them, and sell a lot.
Absolutely awesome. If you want to know if you have potential to be selling at an event, you need two things. You need people, and you need people who are spending money. That is all you need for a qualified event. So when you're thinking about events, you're doing research, you're looking at what's possible, that is going to be what you're looking for. Now, our next speaker is going to be Mr. Carlton Thompson. And do we got any Carlton fans in the room? Yeah, if you ever don't know where Carlton is, just listen for the Kanye or the Kendrick Lamar just blasting. It might be Roger Rodriguez, but he'll know where Carlton is. So, hello. There's a speed limit in here. And one of the things I love about Carlton is I remember a conversation at the State Fair of Texas, and Carlton was saying, I'm not sure if this is really what I want to do. And it was because of experiences he'd been having at small events. And what was really beautiful was just seeing how Carlton showed up to those small events. You know, to this day, Carlton will still work many bases for the federal program where he will only have 2, 3, 5 interactions in a day. And yet what's beautiful is Carlton has still, for 2024 and 2023, is the number 3 order taker in the entire Cutco business. Ever since that day, Carlton has gone on to build out a beautiful life, and he has an amazing wife, Miss Jaden, who I got to spend the last couple days with. Very cool and fun. Carlton has gone on to sell nearly $4 million in Cutco, and this last year put up nearly $600,000 a year. With that, please welcome Mr. Carlton Thompson to the stage.
Beautiful. The heart of Cutco events is in working smaller events. When we all started as Cutco representatives, we came in with an initial list. We were doing demonstrations. We were doing service calls. If you're on the realtor program, you were doing one-on-one appointments. And of course, now we also have service events that we work as well. These are all just real-time thoughts about the fact that we all work one-on-one in interactions that are still small. And no matter the territory that we live in, whether you live in a metropolitan area of 1 million to 3 million people, that's smaller, maybe you live in a major metro area of 7 to 10 million people, we all as Cutco reps experience similar challenges in acquiring the best customers in our local area and growing our reach, because at the end of the day, our network and who we're speaking to and developing those relationships is one of the most important things we can do as reps. The fact of the matter is that small events can be real needle movers for any rep at any level. The one example I think of right off is Curtis, and the fact that he's always talked about that. I remember we met up right when he sold $1 million, and he wanted to basically have an homage to any rep that could build the business in their backyard. So it's attainable for any of us. But when you think about small events, I think about Cutco and how it's akin to being a great fisherman. They're one and the same. As a fisherman, you'd have to understand your body of water. You have to understand what type of fish you're fishing for, what those fish eat, when they move, at what time of day that is, and of course, what kind of hook to use. But one of the most important aspects of being a fisherman would be your body of water. Your pond, or whatever body of water you're fishing in, will have specifics for you to research. Quiet observation of your pond before casting your line is imperative. So a few questions to ask yourself when it comes to your particular territory would be questions like this. What industries are the most significant in my local economy? What moves money, especially in my territory? Acquiring these customers naturally make you more referable. It also makes you the go-to person in your territory for you to be the person that everyone wants to buy Cutco from. Different territories around the United States have different types of events that you'd want to research based on these facts. From where I'm from, we have oil and gas expos. Your area might not have that, but in certain parts of the Midwest, there's industries that are more important to others, like excavation maybe. We don't have basements in Oklahoma. The dirt don't do that. But other parts of the country have street fairs. We don't have as many one-day street fairs. But the one thing that you can always do to figure out where you want to actually grow your reach within events would be to find the most affluent areas that are in your territory. What school districts are there that are around that you know of that are the names to be a part of, private school areas? I wanted to actually explain with our territory in Texoma about Granbury here in Texas. It's just about an hour south of Fort Worth. And this is an area that wasn't really nurtured. It's a more underserved area in Cutco. And it wasn't until there was like a particular CSP that went and worked a one-day event, which to this day, we still bring a tent to these events, work the 4th of July or Memorial Day event. And there's now 5 to 8 at least events in this area that's underserved with really quality customers that sell at least $10,000 a piece per event. We've even niched down as far as to go into volleyball tournaments. There's been, I think it came from Dante and the Lone Star team. They were starting to work volleyball tournaments, and then our team started picking these up just because there was people buying. And just because you're working a smaller event doesn't mean it's a cheaper event. It just means that you've niched down. It could be a really expensive event. But that just goes to show you how impactful it is to be in front of the right people. There's riches and niches. But going back to the fisherman illustration, keeping the fish on the line once you have one. We're going to talk about reeling them in. And if you've ever worked with Chelsea, she does this physically at the booth starts. You know, the whole thing. A lot of theatrics with Chelsea. It's funny. There's two things I want to talk about when it comes to working smaller events. And one of them is creating turns at the booth. So the principle would be attentiveness. The second thing I would like to highlight is just one other aspect of closing that would be important. So attentiveness. My question to the Cutco community is, do you have a dog mentality when behind the booth? Absolute dog mentality. If you are standing behind the booth and you are passive, I think we're at the point now where most of us should at least acknowledge that that probably isn't the way we should be conducting ourselves when it comes to being behind the booth. We want to create an experience of professionalism, lightness, and of course, as always, candid straightforwardness with every single customer. Saying something simple as, looking's free to people that are walking by. Looking's free. We still haven't figured out a way to charge you for that yet. This is just one of the things. I mean, another thing is, you guys want to check them out? Acknowledging people specifically. When there's a group, we've learned this from Curtis, when there's a group of men and women walking by, it's, how's it going, folks? If it's just ladies, how's it going, ladies? If it's just men, hello, gentlemen. It's about acknowledging people particularly. Because of Philip Tice, we've been doing this whole hat trick thing where we start talking about what people are wearing. What's that logo on your hat? What we're noticing is that just by acknowledging people individually and particularly, even if they're not buying business gifts, it's creating more turns behind the booth. And this is what's really helping people close more orders. It's keeping people engaged. You're getting more people to the booth so that way they actually interact, whether the event is slow or not. I think a lot of people just assume that the biggest events are always busy, but at the end of the day, we're still creating the opportunity. Also, too, it's really easy to get caught up in dogma within Cutco. So I do believe that, like, if you have a stool at the booth, I don't think that's wrong. But I think if you use, again, the principle of attentiveness, try not to sit down so much. It will be helpful. When it comes to the marketing piece of this, getting more people to the booth, if you're not going to make the calls yourself, I personally do hire an assistant. Once you get to the point of thousands of customers, there is a critical mass where you're just not able to contact everybody, especially for certain things like marketing follow-up calls, courtesy calls, and account updates. During the fall time when catalogs drop, if you're not making all the calls for everyone who gets a catalog, someone needs to be making the call. During the holiday time, I even do the click calls whenever people click onto the email because there's just so many people in the funnel. Of course, if you have time in your schedule for the service calls and service events, making sure those appointments are completely booked up as much as you possibly can with an assistant can be a really, really big game changer. Now, we did have Brett talk about one version of the stall. Now I want to get into the next part of the nitty-gritty here. I want to actually discuss the spouse stall. So I actually had it saved in my phone last year whenever I had asked Brandon Brown a question about the spouse stall. And I actually saved it in my phone on my camera roll and reran it like dozens of times, I think, maybe at least a dozen, throughout different parts of the year. And I wanted to really flesh out this thing that I'd learned from him. So when someone says they want to talk to their spouse, of course, the disarming thing, as we know, to agree with the customer and let them know it's totally okay to talk to your spouse. But one of the first things to ask a customer, I believe, is this. Taking price out of the equation, what are your thoughts on this here? Taking price out of the equation, if the set were free, what are your thoughts? And then whatever you get in response from them is leading you to the next question, which is, hypothetically speaking, if this were solely up to you, would it be ridiculous to move forward with this purchase? At this point, we'll get into that. Okay, so the next question. So after you, again, further the conversation and just see if the customer's bought in at all. And at that point, you ask this question here. If he or she were here, do you really think they would say no? You're here, I'm here, and even with the best intention to come back, unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. So if I were to tempt you with one last offer, would you be open to pulling the trigger even though your spouse isn't here with you today? So there's a couple things I think are important that I had to think hard about this, because if you get this objection enough, I do believe you have to think about it harder. The whole trick is first to know if someone's even open to considering it at all. And then if you can get past that hurdle, I learned from Josh Muller a long time ago, he mentioned that if you can get someone to talk to you about money, you've gotten so much further than you could ever get with a customer behind the booth. So the whole thing is if they are at that point and you can actually overcome that hurdle, it could be to the point where you've already entered the customer's information and then you ask one last time, just to put them on the future customer list, and you still ask one last time, that can still get you in order. But at the end of the day, treat everyone like they're worth $1 million. The standard operating procedure should always be to treat people with the utmost respect. Treat them like they should walk away feeling like you've done everything in your power to work for them. That is the goal. And small events are crucial in helping you to be grateful whenever you do get a crack at the bigger event, whenever it is really busy, because there's nothing that teaches you how to lock in with a customer like at a small event. So when you do get the customer that's at the busy show on a Saturday, you can actually slow things down, let them know, no stress, you have my undivided attention, and then be able to move forward from there. So in our responsibilities as becoming great fishermen in the world of Cutco, I think what matters most is that we are continuing to work on our craft. And I really like what Brandon Brown was saying about serenity. And you think about how it does take calm, like a true calm, to analyze what you're doing in the business. These things are really things that will help you if you just think harder about what we're doing in preparation for whenever you work your next shift. So find the friction points in your own distributorship. Work on them. Enhance your sales ability. Make sure that the customer has an amazing experience every single time that you get the chance to work with them, especially the best ones. And as we continue in our endeavor to become great, every interaction that we have will become better, and our distributorships will flourish. Thanks.